So I'll refer you over to the nicer data analysis threads. There's a lot of really valuable information here. I'll link it in the description down below along with everything else. But what's more important here is this thread on retrieving and using geomagnetic quantities. The geomagnetic quantities are actually pretty easy and straightforward to get. So to work with the geomagnetic quantities, we're going to need to set up a geomag path. So what you can see I'm doing here is I'm making a directory called geomag within my HESOFT 6.3.1 directory, and that's where all of the geomagnetic quantities or the geomagnetic data is going to be stored. In reality, you can make this anything you want, but I think a dedicated geomag path in the HESOFT directory is appropriate. Then we are just exporting this geomag path. It's geomag path in all caps, and that's the path to that geomagnetic directory I just created. Then we're just going to add that to our bash rc, and you're going to want to do all of this after installing HESOFT 6.3.1, because now we need to actually access and get these geomagnetic quantities, and we're going to do that by using this ni-geodown command. ni-geodown is just a tool in NicerDis, and it is going to retrieve all of the geomagnetic quantities to our geomag path. And if we open up that geomagnetic directory, you can see all these files right here, which is our geomagnetic data that is going to be required for us to work with nicer data or do nicer data reduction with HESOFT version 6.3.1. Now previously I had the geomag path set to this link right here, this where it would just be retrieved remotely. You won't be able to do that anymore with HESOFT version 6.3.1. I spent a few hours trying to actually get it to work and I couldn't do it. Maybe there is a way to do it, but just from my experience, I have not been able to get those remote geomag quantities to be, to work with nicer L2 and everything else that's going on right here. And to kind of show this, I'm going to show you what's going on here with nicer L2 and some of the new additions right in there. So if we go ahead and take a look here I have a terminal window. I'm using AutoNicer. For those of you that don't know, AutoNicer is just a simple pipelining tool that I have that allows you to quickly and easily retrieve and reduce nicer data. So it is working with HESOFT version 6.3.1. Stay tuned in the next few days here for a video on a new release with some new functionality. But I've chosen this particular observation right here, 301, 301, 102. From the crab pulsar, and you can see here with nicer L2, one of the things that you end up starting to see is these geomag columns. Before, this is something that could just be ignored, but it is now a requirement. You need to be using, you need to have those geomag quantities, and it's going to be looking for the geomag path. If it doesn't find the geomag path, you're going to run into some issues down here with the nicer pre-filter 2. You can see right here, again, it's looking for that geomag stuff, and it has picked up that geomag directory that I've set up. So you're pretty much not going to be able to do really next to anything without those geomagnetic quantities. So it's really important that you go ahead and do that. Again, I just went ahead into the HESOFT directory, source directory, made a new directory called geomag, and then just put the path to that as the geomag path. And you should be kind of all set to go, and you can run ni-geodown to retrieve those geomagnetic quantities. Now, the other thing I want to mention quickly here with ni-geodown is that there's this chatter parameter that's going to kind of help in diagnosing errors. There isn't too much else kind of listed with that, so I haven't really used the chatter parameter yet. But you can go ahead and give it a try if you're encountering some issues. Now, one last thing I want to highlight with regard to the geomagnetic quantities or the geomagnetic data is that it needs to be updated routinely. There is a little bit of help here with regard to setting up a cron job for this to go through and download every day. But for me, I'm usually processing really, really large amounts of data kind of at any point in time. So for me, what I end up doing is I just end up going and I'll run ni-geodown, and then I'll start reducing that data and churning through things, or even better yet, that is something I'm looking to just add into AutoNicer. So if you are a user of AutoNicer, it's just going to go through and pull those geomagnetic quantities at a certain interval. But a cron job is just as easily set up. It's just up to you with how you want to set that up.